We're going to take a look at variables within our bash shell. Our command line environment often is run by bash, the born again shell. We have two types of variables to consider: local variables and environment variables. Local variables only affect the shell that they are loaded in, whereas an environment variable will affect both the shell and any commands issued from that shell. So we need to understand this, and the best way to do that is to dive out to our bash shell. Are you ready to join me? So let's dive into our wonderful world of variables. We can see variables from the command line, and they can be really useful. Most operating systems will have them. But if I echo out the contents of the variable $shell, notice when I'm reading a variable, I put the dollar in front of it. My default shell is /bin/bash. Remember bin for binaries. This is commonly a default shell on many Linux systems. If I look at my working directory, so pwd, we can see that is home and tux, my present working directory variable. Now this might appear quite useful because then I can go cd $pwd, but when we think about it, it is just taking me to my current directory. Now, of course, we don't have to use it for changing. We might actually have it within a script to check the current directory the script is being run from. But let's go through and look at something a little bit more interesting. If I move into USR share and doc, and then choose to cd to my old print working directory, that takes me back to the home directory where I was previously. So that does look pretty good, but let me show you this. There is a shortcut for that, cd -. So cd- allows you to toggle between two directory structures, but that really is very cool and good to know. But let's stay on the idea of these variables, both our local and our global variables. If I just create a variable called fruit, and very often we use uppercase names for variables, I've set it to apple, and then I can echo out $fruit. When I'm reading a variable, I use the dollar symbol. No, also when I'm setting a variable, I can't have any spaces around the equals sign. But a variable set in this way is local to the shell that it is set in. It's only available to the shell and not any executable that is run from it. An easy way to demonstrate this is if we fire up another bash shell, so just typing bash. Now when we try and look at our fruit variable, so echo $fruit, we can see it has no variable. In this shell, it's not available. If I exit and return to the parent shell, then it is still available within the parent. Local variables are only available to the shell where the variable was created. Okay, let's fix this. Let's clear our screen and create an environment variable. And we do that by exporting a variable. So if I export fruit, notice that I'm not reading the variable, so I don't use the dollar symbol. But now the variable is exported. If I open up another shell, the variable is going to be available. But remember, it's not just available to other shells, it's available to every command issued from the parent shell. So echo out $fruit, and I see now that fruit is set to apple in my child shell. Let me issue the exit command to close that shell and return to my parent shell. We can now see really how this is used. Let me check the editor variable in my shell. So echo editor, and don't forget this should be $editor, so $editor. And currently the variable is not populated, so it shows no value. Now remember what we said about environment variables. Environment variables can then be picked up by all commands issued from the shell. So if I use something like crontab, it's going to fire up an editor. So crontab -e. The very first time round, it will default to nano, but does allow you to choose. So I'm just going to go for the default choice. And then crontab, which is a job scheduler then opens up its configuration file. I'm just going to jump out of that, so Control and X. But if I fire it up a second time, you can see that automatically now it's defaulting to Nano, as I've answered that original question. If I answer that question wrong, I can change the choice by setting the editor variable. If I set the editor variable as a local variable, and if I set it to Vim, and again notice that there is no spaces around the equal sign, as I go through now and run crontab -e, because it's a local variable, the crontab command can't use it, so we still open in Nano. There is a little bit of a cheat that I can do. If I go back to where the variable has been set, so where I've got my editor equals Vim, and then I continue on the same line and set crontab -e, now the editor is local to the crontab command, but this instance of the crontab command. Again, don't concern yourself too much about the crontab file, but we can see now that it has opened up in Vim, so I have to use escape, and X to exit the editor. But if I go back now and run the command again, we can see it's back to defaulting to Nano. So if I want to make this a little bit more persistent, exporting the variable and making it an environment variable is going to then allow me to consistently use Vim as my editor. So export editor equals Vim. Now the environment variable has been set. Running crontab again will open up the Vim text editor, so I need to then use escape, and X to save and exit. To truly persist this, I'd need to add the export statement to a login script, so every time I logged in, the variable was exported and created. But for the moment, we've seen a little bit of the difference between our local and environment variables.